What's up, Corbin?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Hi, so I called into the show about a week ago, and I came into the show with a pretty open mind. I was open to having my mind changed because a part of me didn't want to vote for Trump because I don't like his rhetoric or him as a person. I think he's way too divisive.
Hmm.
But I just had a really hard time justifying voting for Kamala Harris when there are so many more policies that I disagree with her on. But I just can't discount the fact that Trump brings out the worst in us.
Yeah.
So I don't agree with most of Kamala Harris's policies, but I think this election is more than just policy disagreements.
Right.
I don't think she's a phenomenal politician by any means, but I can't believe I'm going to be saying this, but I will be voting for Kamala Harris.
Wow. Well, first of all, sir, let me say this. I remember you. You called into this show last week and you said you were going to be voting for Trump. We had a very civil conversation, right? I think you would agree, right? We had a very civil
Yes.
back and forth conversation, and I complimented you last week for having an open mind. Because if you recall the end of our call, I said, you said you were going to do some research and you said you would get back to me. And I appreciate you for number one, calling back in, and number two, listening, and number three, having the guts, for lack of a better term, to say to yourself, listen, I don't agree with all of Kamala's policies, but I'm going to vote for her. Let me tell you something, sir. You are not alone. That's why they have Republicans for Harris. Many of these Republicans that I talk to, they'll open and they'll say exactly what you just said. Listen, I don't agree with all of her policies, but I'm still going to vote for her because this election is more than just policy. And I got to tell you something. I'm proud of the fact that there are people like you out there. And if Kamala does win, while I understand you don't agree with all of her policies, I believe she's willing to work with people like you. She said it. She's willing to speak with. She even said she'd have a Republican in her cabinet, right? What was the? Can I ask you? What was like the deciding factor? Was it his rhetoric? You said he brings out the worst in some of us, which I would agree with you on. What was like the determining factor in the last week where you said, okay, that's it. I'm going to vote for Harris.
There's a number of factors. One that really did make me think, okay, I'll vote for Kamala Harris is because I saw an interview with her on The View, and she said that she would be willing to appoint a Republican to her cabinet. So I can appreciate that she's at least making an effort to try to appeal to Republicans.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I've also been thinking about what's going to happen for the down ballot elections, like for the House and the Senate, and it seems like best case scenario for Democrats is that they'll have a 50-50 seat majority. It could be a 51-2 for Republicans, depending on how things go in some other states.
Right.
And I thought that, maybe she's not really going to be able to pass a radically left-wing agenda.
Right.
I think she'll be forced to govern from the center if she gets elected.
So that's another good point.
And
yeah, that's another good point, and I tend to agree with you on that. If you don't mind me asking you this question, and I'm not trying to take full credit or anything, but I want to ask you this because this is important. If you didn't call into this show last week, do you still think you would have come to this conclusion, or did this show have a big factor into your decision?
it did have a factor in the sense that you did bring up last week how inflation is lower than it is in the G7 countries. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was led to believe that, inflation is bad and it's really bad compared to other countries around the world. But I didn't know that we're better off
Right.
than all the other G7
And that's
countries.
important, right, Corbin? I mean, that's important. And I'm so glad that you looked that up because I do my best here. I'm not always perfect, but I try to be honest, right? I try to tell the truth. And I got to be honest with you, my friend. I'm proud of you. You're not alone. There are plenty of other people that I know that are reasonable, intelligent people that are willing to have an open mind. And I applaud you for that. And I'm not necessarily trying to change people's mind. All I can do is speak facts. We all have our own opinions. I understand that. But the fact that you were willing to do that, I got to tell you, I wish there were more people in this country like you that have an open mind. Unfortunately, listen, Kamala Harris is not perfect. I would never go on the air and say no candidate is. But I do believe she's a reasonable human being. She's a decent person. And you made a really good point. She's not going to be this radical left-wing person that so many make her out to be. And what would you say, Corbin, to other Republicans out there or Trump supporters that are ashamed or embarrassed by Donald Trump's rhetoric, but they're afraid to talk about it or even not willing to have an open mind? You obviously do have an open mind. What would you say to them?
I typically vote for politicians if I think they'll improve my life. I don't know if that's a selfish thing to believe in, but
No, it's
when
not
Trump
selfish.
when Trump is saying crazier things and he has a really divisive rhetoric, it makes me wonder if he's in the best position to actually improve anyone's lives.
Other than his own, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, Corbin, let me end by saying this, my friend. I really do appreciate you. I mean that sincerely. I appreciated your phone call last week. I knew you were a good guy. I said that a bunch of times in our call. I can hear it in your voice. You care. You care about facts. You have an open mind. And I really do appreciate that. That really means a lot that you were willing to call back and you're a man of your word. And Corbin, this is about democracy, my friend. And if Donald Trump never sees the White House again, it's going to be because of people like you. So I applaud you and thank you so much for calling in. And I'd love for you to call back. Okay?
Can I say one more thing real quick?
Absolutely. Go right ahead.
I just think that we all need to stop demonizing each other on both sides and listen. We shouldn't resort to name calling. I'm worried that we're going to lead to political violence.
Yeah. You know what I'm going to do, Corbin?
I'm not saying.
You know what I'm going to do?
Yes.
I'm going to take your advice. I could also do a better job at that. I'm not perfect. Sometimes I lose my cool. And when people call me names or they just say really dumb things, sometimes I resort to ad hominem attacks as well. And because you had an open mind and you were willing to listen to me, I'm going to have an open mind. And I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going to remember you when somebody pisses me off. I'm going to try to not lose my cool. Okay, Corbin? And I'm going to do that because of you, because you were willing to listen to me. Sound fair?
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I appreciate you, my friend. We can help each other. Corbin, that call means the world to me. I can't even tell you what that means to me. And I really do appreciate you calling into this show. It really, really means a lot, my friend. Thank you, Corbin, for calling in.